Sagnik, and I'm excited to be your host for today's session, Data Strategy for AI Success, a Pragmatic Path to Becoming AI Ready. As marketers, we all hear about the promise of AI, but unlocking real value starts from the right data foundation. Today, our experts Ryan Treichler and Sumitra Patil will share actionable strategies to help you assess your current data landscape, improve data quality, and put the right governance in place to enable AI-powered personalization. No hype, just practical steps you can take to become truly AI ready. Whether you're just starting your AI journey or looking to scale what you already have, you will walk away with a clear roadmap and real world insights you can put to work right away. Thank you for joining us. Let's dive in.
Hello, hi, I'm Sumitra. I'm AI Product Manager for Unica. So today we're going to talk about data strategy, but before that, Ryan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Treichler. I am a Director of Product Management here. So I oversee AI and our data strategy and a bunch of other things here at HCL. And I've got a lot of experience both with AI and in MarTech. So we're both happy to talk with you today, with you all today.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to talk about this data readiness for AI kind of use cases. First of all, when we launched our Unica Plus last year around June, it is an AI first platform, and we got a lot of requests from our customers to understand how can we go about AI use cases with respect to marketing, or understand like what is happening in AI landscape and how do we get going with it. Do you have a playbook for all these newer things that are coming into market? So we had a lot of one-on-one sessions. So we thought of why can't we create a series which will help all our customers into this journey. So that's why we created this series. So today we are going to talk about like how can we have data readiness for all these AI use cases. But next session we have Janice, who is our AI guru, and Paul, who is our marketing genius, and they're going to talk about what are challenges for marketer in terms of trusting AI, and how can AI be more transparent box and not a black box. So how can you demystify AI? That is next session. So you have a QR code on your screen, and if you want to register for the next session as well, you can use that and register. It's going to be very exciting. There is third session in the series which is going to be about agentic AI. Now, you all know that agentic AI is most talked about, or it's like a buzzword now. Though it is not the most search word, by the way. The most search word around AI is probably ChatGPT, but agentic AI is like the next one, and it is a lot of people are very excited to know what it is, what it brings to us, and we will also talk about what it means for marketer. What is agentic AI for marketer? Whether it is hype or it is real. So even that session is going to be very exciting. So if you want to register for that, scan the QR code and you will be able to attend that as well. So let's get into today's session. So today we are going to talk about the data, AI, and MarTech. So how these three things come together and what are the things or do's and don'ts for these. So let's understand AI landscape. And this is just to represent that how quickly the AI landscape has become very complex. So on your right hand side, there are all these generative AI companies who are either hosting LLMs or inferencing or help you fine tune or generate synthetic data and those kind of stuff. So there is model gardens, there are AI foundries, there are co-pilots, and everything that you might have heard about. On your left hand side, there are more consumer kind of vendors where they are actually AI first, and they are either helping you deal with different types of AI, text, images, voice, video creation, a lot of vertical agents which go across the enterprise. There are point vendors where they are just doing, let's say, something related to copywriting, something related to design, something related to legal document scans and those kind of stuff. These companies are here to stay. They are integrating lots and lots of AI into it. There are companies which also allow you to create your own applications on top of AI, which is also the creation barrier has gone down. So you'll be able to create something on your own for your organization or for your team also very easily nowadays. So both these things are here to stay. Now if you just observe, this is from Sequoia, but it is still says it a work in progress. So that means there will be more and more players coming into this space, and it is going to be really overwhelming. With this, we have a poll, like small quiz, just to see like where you are, what kind of AI you're using, and probably Danya can show that poll and you can just see where you are with AI currently.
While you're working the poll, I have a little bit some anecdotes about this. AI is changing drastically. Like you saw the number of vendors on that chart, and the number is growing quite rapidly, and the capabilities and systems are also changing very rapidly. I have a friend that runs sales engineering for Gemini, and he says that they don't like to use any information that's out of date by more than a week. They feel like if they haven't researched something within a week, that their AI information is no longer valid. That's the state of how fast the market's changing.
Yeah. And I'm sure all these AI companies, their challenges are entirely different.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You mentioned ChatGPT as being the number one search, but like even the AI companies are all working together. So they're passing data back and forth. They're looking at how they train models to work together. The technology is very intermingled.
Yeah. So we have the poll results. I think 63% or more than that are saying I use LLM or ChatGPT, Gemini to help me with the things. So yeah, we pretty much see the similar feedback, but everybody is excited to kind of start their AI journey. I'll move forward. So next one, it's on the similar lines, I wanted to say that models, like all this LLM models, we have newer and newer models coming every day. And if you just see this chart, this is still 2024, but in 2025 and 2026 also, there are newer and newer models coming into market, and they're better. They're getting better every day. So the point here is you can focus onto the model, but I think if you focus on your data on which all these AI applications will run, you will always achieve the better results. So don't over index onto model. There will be always better model coming up in couple of months. But if you over index onto your data or focus on your data readiness, that will help with the accuracy with all these AI use cases. So with that, I'm going to just move into our MarTech space. So we all know, and we have all faced this over years, that MarTech is getting more and more complex. We have different types of data: first party data, second party data, third party data. We have data that is being collected with all different channels. And now with the introduction of newer and newer channels, it is getting more and more complex. So you have customer profile data, different identities. Now, even if you think about identities, just imagine how many, there are hundreds of literally identifiers that we have today: digital, physical, phygital, so on and so forth, right from your cookie ID to your different loyalty programs to those kind of things. You'll always find that different systems will have different identifiers. There are different profile attributes. There are different real-time attributes or dimensions that you want to take into consideration. So this data also is overwhelming. You have to capture all behavioral analytics, web analytics, transactional data, your content related data, what worked well, what did not work well, so on and so forth. This again in different phases. You have phase where as soon as you get data, it's in a raw phase or a landing zone, you process it, you keep some aggregates, you use it for audits, you use it for reporting, so on and so forth. Again, the execution, your marketing automation, next wave. So you need all this data for all these purposes. Now, for this new AI use cases, do you think that you need more data? So the answer is no, you don't need more data. But you need all this data consistently captured, and you have to invest into correctness of this data, because given all the limitations or given all the things that exist in our data sources, we'll have to put some effort into making it more consistent. So how can you make it more consistent? You can have different approaches. The first, you can go stage by stage. So first is, let's say, for data visibility. So you should know like what data exists where and what format, whether it is you're going to use it for batch versus real-time use cases. You have to map this data to your marketing use case. Now this, you must be doing this, but with newer AI powered tool, you can also use AI-powered discovery tools which can auto-scan the data or your repositories. It can also have NLP kind of interface on top of it. You can use it to group tables which are related. It can detect PII. So if you want to be aware that where you're sending PII or not, so it can help you with that. There are also automated data lineage tools which have become very critical since the data is flowing in so many places for so many different reasons. Now we can't stop it, but we can also be aware of it. So the data lineage tools can help you with that where the data is originating, so on and so forth. Now with this AI tools, I think what I found is it's more deeper. It understands the context and not just keyword search. These are really getting better. Now in stage 2, like where you are unifying data, we all have understood that a lot of people are trying to adopt CDP or your identity matching. But even there, you can use, instead of deterministic matching, more hybrid approach for identity matching or identity resolution. So unification is like key, otherwise you'll not be able to understand the customer behavior and the targeting will not be that effective, right? So you can actually run multiple identity graphs, you can have stronger identity graphs and get the confidence score, and accordingly you'll be able to use that into the activation stage. Now even here, you know that there are less than, I think, 25% companies who are actually using real-time decisioning or activation. These are stats which shows us that even though it is shown effective, we still have to work towards making that real-time decisions or having AI make that real-time decision. And for that, your data will give you confidence to get those real-time activations done. There is also like a very interesting stat that almost 50% of the vendors or like customers lack end-to-end visibility across their data. This tools, of course, investing into these newer tools and technologies is going to give you a lot of benefits to understand what is going on. I think stage 4 is for a data learning loop, and this is also very important because AI is going to learn from its own presentation. So for example, if you're sending some offer, if that is working or not, you have to get that feedback back. What kind of campaigns worked for you? What kind of decisions work for you? So to get that feedback fed into the models, it is very important. So you also have to think about that, and it is a very important or crucial step for getting your models to stay active or stay accurate and on top of things. So I think the key message here is the AI readiness or like even data readiness. It's not going to be like one big bang thing, you invest some time and it's going to be ready, but it is more incremental. You have to keep on thinking about it, and whenever you have some changes, new channel integrations, you have to always repeat that cycle so that your data or Martic is ready for newer and newer use cases.
Yeah, so Sumitra, I think that's so important that it is just something where you constantly need to work on this. This is something where you're consistently making changes and consistently making improvement, because that stage 2 piece, the data reliability, that is really crucial to all of this. There have been some studies recently just about large language models, and these are huge models with massive amounts of data, and as little as 100 rows of bad data or 100 rows of targeted bad data can actually poison those models. So if you don't have reliable data, it's going to potentially have a negative impact on the outcome that you have. I also have a lot of experience running data science teams, and we consistently saw that the quality of the data had a much bigger impact on whether or not a model was actually going to achieve what you wanted it to do, whether it was going to get you where you were trying to go, than actually the amount of data science power and all the things that go into building the specific model. So the model itself was almost secondary to the data and the accuracy of the data and the ability to use it. So all of this, this is something where organizations need to really think about how they can consistently move forward, how they can improve improve their data and make it more accessible, because more data and better data is going to result in better results for the organization.
Absolutely. So with that, let's get to like more data related things. We found that still like today also 70 to 80% of work for AI use cases is data readiness, is like seeing all these things like Ryan mentioned. All these things are so important, and though we feel that it is same thing that we're talking about, but it is really critical, and we still see a lot of customers struggling with that. And the algorithm or the model part is just like 20% of it, but data readiness is so crucial, and that is why we are just having this whole session. And we have seen this consistently across customers. These are like typical things that we found out, that most of the times these are like inconsistent. There is inconsistent naming in your data warehouse or databases. There is incompatible schemas. There are missing values. There are null values. There are conflicting truths. If you were to like derive at revenue numbers or spend and those kind of things, you also find a lot of conflicting truths if you refer to different things. That also is caused by a lot of these point-to-point ETLs in marketing. You just have one ETL to another, and they were built like some time back when we did one vendor integration versus another, and so on and so forth. So these are like some of the most common things. You also have to think about archival, look back, like how much time with newer channels. Sometimes the data is valid only for some time. You have to think about that, how long you're going to trust some browsing event or something happened within the app. And so if you want to make any decisions, you need it in real time. So do you want to store it later, or how do you want models to process it? So that kind of things, you'll have to take a call that how long that signal is valid for. Again, for identity matching, and identity matching is so crucial, that having that good identity resolution kind of stuff is very important. Now, saying that, we also have to understand boundaries for our data world. So a lot of times we have missing data. So for example, you had to add some tracking codes into your events or your sites for your ad tech or whatever, and that was missed, or maybe because of bad instrumentation or whatever. Now that the data you have collected, you can't really track it back to any campaigns. Now, what do you really do with this kind of data? This is, even if it is missed for 1 or 2 campaigns, maybe some kind of imputation methods will help. But if you have a lot of these data, then it is potentially bad data, and you will have to find out some way, depending on the situation, that you either take it away from the model training and those kind of things, or you find some way to fix this data. There are certain things where you cannot really fix the corrupt data. So for example, now with Apple's mail privacy protection, all the mails that are going to that device will by default open. Now what happens to your send time optimization? You'll always get this inflated open rates, and that is because of the device or the vendor policy, and it is not really customers eyeballing that particular mail. Similarly, for that mails, your subject line analysis or your A/B testing and all this scores will be screwed, because it is not really a person opening that. Similar thing happens for the bot activities. Now, either you have a certain vendor who will understand that this is a bot activity and highlight it so that you can skip it from your reports and model training, or you'll have this inflated data, which is not really right. So the similar thing is observed onto website also. So there could be like a bot or crawler activity on the website which gives these signals or events which are not really human being doing it. Now, with that, similar to that is, again, we talked about duplicate or fragmented data. It gives us inflated audience counts, again, conflicting truths where your customer count is not that much. That will inflate because you are not able to resolve the identities, or you have excess number of audience size. Now, inconsistent definition across systems. So this one is also, we observe a lot that your definition of conversion in one tool versus another tool can vary, or your definition of engagement. What do you call as engagement? What do you call as campaign success? What do you call as conversion? It has to match across vendors, across teams. If you have different acquisition team, different team who is handling loyalty or whatever. So you have to have that common definitions, and that way you'll see like more consistent data and models giving more accurate kind of personalization, so on and so forth. The attribution trust on unworthy data. So now this is related to this, some of this data where data was not collected properly. Or let's take example of Gmail. So Gmail introduced like this unsubscribe button. Vendors where you have not seen their mail in last 6 months. So it would just flag it up and say that you have not read a single mail in last 6 months. Do you want to unsubscribe? And you'll click on unsubscribe. We all did that, but was it the same campaign that was going on at that point in time? Probably not. It was the outcome of maybe last 6 to 9 months. Now, if you attribute that unsubscribe to that particular campaign, the current campaign would look really bad, but it is not actually that campaign. You have to be aware of all these activities and maybe downweight some of these unsubscribe or attribution that is going in such cases. Delayed or stale data, we all have seen like in different ETLs, if you want to have real-time decisions and the data is really coming late or 1 or 2 days late. Now, sometimes that data is of no use, so as to say, because you're not going to do any targeting, or the targeting will not yield you any results in that case. So those are things that you have to be either aware of, and you do not include that unless you have like real-time data, or you do something to make that real-time data available into decisions. The last one is, and it is very important, and I feel that we all believe that tools can fix data, but and CDPs, like especially from CDP teams, the expectation is that it will fix everything, but it cannot fix actually the bad or corrupt data. So that way you'll have to understand that wherever there is bad data, the tools will not help. The other thing that we have also seen is, instead of thinking about data strategy, a lot of teams go with tool first approach, which is also not right. Depending on the tool, you're thinking what data you require or what data you can collect. But I think we should go with data first approach and not tool first approach, because that way, even in long term, if tools changes, you'll still be in control of your data.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry, Sumitra. I was just going to say, like, I think this part of understanding the boundaries of your data is so important, because there's a lot that you can do with seasonality as you get more and more data that will alleviate some problems, but it never resolves everything, because there's always information that you have as a marketer that might not be available to the models. The model may be able to pick up seasonality, but it won't be aware of things like that have happened in a particular city. If there's a major sporting event that's in a city that potentially impacts you, or something like that, or as you were talking about, all the changes in the way technology works, changes to Apple or changes to Gmail, all of these things are extraneous to your marketing, but definitely have an impact on the way things are behaving. And you as a marketer can be aware of those things. The tools may not be aware of that. And so it's really important that when you're looking at issues with data and looking at how you utilize data, that you're aware of those extraneous things that potentially could impact the quality of your data and make it maybe not fit for purpose for future use, so that you can say, all right, this is actually what I want to look at when I'm building modeling for the future.
yeah. And I think while I was thinking about all these boundaries, one more example came to my mind, which is progressive profiling. Now we all try to collect more information over time from a customer. Like first you just know like email address and few things about that customer, and over time you're going to try to figure out more attributes and so on and so forth. Now that those that becomes like missing data. Now, is it really missing or it is something that you're waiting for? That's again a very interesting use case where you'll have to flag it to not to send it to models so that it does not replace it with or trying to guess work in that case. But and you still have your marketing use case of trying to figure out like about these newer audiences, you want to engage with them more or try to acquire newer and newer customers. So this also is like interesting use case. All right, moving on to the next. So I've just tried to figure out like what are the different things that we have. So different types of data and what could be the hygiene focus for them. If you have customer data like deduplication, identity resolution, consent management, we all have been doing it, but that could be like that should be our primary focus. Content and docs, so versioning of those documents, freshness of those documents, or semantic chunking will help in AI use cases. Events and logs, so we all see that there is a lot of noise here. So you have like hundreds of events, you want to act on 1 2 5 whatever number of events into that. So how do you filter the noise so that you work on to more nicer data than just like the whole noise, and also keep aggregates for your reporting and other stuff. Your marketing assets, like I think right naming, approvals in place, that will help. Knowledge base, and this is especially related to chatbot if you have chatbot kind of implementations. So your authority ranking, that means what source you trust the most. For example, let's take example of MaxAI. For MaxAI assistant, probably our own product documentation will rank the highest, and then probably the support cases, then there could be like articles, blogs, and so on and so forth. So if you rank that, I think the AI will be able to better, or RAG will be better with the precision or accuracy of the answers. So also expiry rules, like sometimes this information is not valid anymore. Those kind of rules will help chatbot be more aware of what it is talking. Social listening, I think again sources where you're trying to listen to, these will play important role. But in social listening, there is a lot of things that AI probably doesn't understand so well, like sarcasm or mixed sentiments. If you say after 40 hours I finally got my case resolved or something like that, or thanks to support, now this is actually contradicted, it's not a positive review. So you have to understand, probably have a human in the loop to understand whether it is false positive or true positive and those kind of things, and then AI will be able to understand and report rightly onto the social sentiment. There are others and other guardrails, like you should have your guardrails in place. RBAC is very important. Logging all this AI decisioning, and and this is also required for EU-AI Act and other compliance things, but also logging what was the question, what was the response, or what kind of decisions AI gave, that will help a lot. Always check for like biases and quality of the output. Sometimes like the continuous evals will help in this. Have human in the loop or human on the loop depending on the use case. PII identification and making sure that you're not passing any PIIs, you have to be aware of that. And the continuous feedback, like these models, if you have continuous feedback, they'll get better at it. Instead of like without the feedback, they'll eventually be out of sync and they'll not be useful anymore, and all our work that we have done, it actually is gone if they are not accurate. There are new KPIs, not new KPIs, but like KPIs that people are thinking differently in terms of AI use cases. So for example, what is FSSR or FCR, first contact resolution? Is the chatbot helping resolve certain things? Or human adoption. So for example, if your AI recommendation, how many humans, or like what is the adoption for that recommendation? Or there is a override. You can always count for, have you reduced the launch time that was required earlier versus after AI execution? So those are kind of things that you can also think about for your AI use cases, that these could be like KPIs that you can also track to see how successful this was.
So the human feedback piece is so crucial to this, because I think one of the things that's really important when you're working with AI models is that models actually degrade over time. So something that performs well today may not perform well in the future. So you need to constantly evaluate and look at this. And for people that are new to LLMs, that's something that's can be pretty frustrating, because these models are what's called non-deterministic, which means you don't know that you're always going to get the same output. Like a deterministic result means you ask question A, you always know you're going to get answer B. And in this case, with an LLM, you may get something similar, but it's non-deterministic, so you're not always going to get the same answer. And because that model performance can potentially degrade over time, you need something that's going to be able to constantly evaluate and look at the results and say, yeah, this is working, no, this is not. So that human feedback, something as simple as a thumbs up, thumbs down on the results that users can click on, is a great way to gather that feedback to understand whether or not the model is working. And particularly as you get into more and more edge cases, that helps you hone where you need to get additional data, where you need to add additional components to the model to ensure that you're going to respond properly in that situation. I think it's just really interesting when you start looking at these KPIs that this is a consistent measurement piece. It's not a, I set this up and it worked, therefore I am done. These model stability, model performance is almost an evergreen problem where you're always going to be looking at how you can improve this and make it work for you. And the scary part in some of this is that when you look at LLM changes, like the change from ChatGPT 4 to 5, OpenAI 4 to 5, there was a lot of pushback because the model improved, in air quotes, but it actually broke a lot of things for people. This is something where it can be very hard for companies, and so you want to make sure that you're providing the right measurements and tools to track and make sure that things are actually working and consistently delivering value. And if you're using the tools, you want to make sure that you're constantly evaluating, making sure that the results that you're getting back or the things that are doing are effective consistently and that they stay effective.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these companies, so if you see Google Contact Center or Support Center, now initially they would give you choice that do you want to chat with our AI assistant or have a human on the line. And most of the time people would prefer a human and they just feel like I want to talk to a human. But now they say that, let's say a human is going to take 10 minutes. Do you want to try explaining this? And let's see if AI can resolve this. Now, over time, people are so comfortable with it and their accuracy also has increased so much that only 10% cases goes to a human and rest of them is solved by AI. Now just imagine what kind of rate you get. This is really good adoption. And you see a lot of these KPIs like clarification loop rate or recommendation adoption or rejection, and those kind of things are coming into picture, that it will not be there in the first go, but you have to keep working at increasing that particular rate. All right, so with this, now we are just going towards like, how do you get all of this in action, or how can you make use of this? Long back, we had this AI use cases for marketers, and these are like 20 odd use cases at different automation scale or fidelity. So there is a white paper available. There is a scan code or QR code on your screen. You can scan it and download that white paper. It has details of all these different use cases. Let's say predictive lead scoring. If that is important for you, you can go to the details. What are different things? How will it help you? And so on and so forth. You can identify top 3 use cases. So this is what we can do in next 90 days. So you can identify top 3 use cases which are most relevant to you, or which you want to try to get to in next 60 to 90 days. Carry out AI powered discovery. Use these newer tools with LLM in natural language, and all these things will really help you. Fix the highest impact gaps. Define success matrices for these use cases, whichever is appropriate. Try newer KPIs, try newer matrices. Now align this within your teams, and then you can get started. There is a lot of information available onto different sites, but we are happy to have this one-on-one schedule call with you to help you get started with it. Or if you have to discuss any other AI topics, we'll be happy to help you.
But before we close, I had another poll that I was curious about for you.
Okay.
I wanted to see if sorry, I didn't get in, but I'm curious about how people in the audience are actually using AI now. I've had a lot of discussions with customers, and it's interesting because it seems like the size of the company, the size of the marketing organization has an impact on how different tools are being used. I think it's interesting that AI-based creative generation is the top, because that is, I think, where I see it, where we see most of the investment has gone from an AI space.
And it is so interesting that traditionally companies who were into design versus companies who were like adjacent to it, they are also adopting it. You don't have to have a really good designer tool nowadays. You can still get going with a lot of these other vendors, and it's really interesting that how it has lowered the barrier of having like really out of box or a really great tool always by your side.
Yeah. To me, when I've been talking with companies and just friends in the industry, like I see particularly at the smaller end of the business that this is almost revolutionary for you, because this is, if you didn't have a big marketing organization, the ability to dynamically generate creatives is pretty amazing. The creative optimization piece is, I think, interesting. One of the things that I think is going to happen over time, we'll see that the creative optimization, journey optimization, segment optimization, all of those things are actually going to become interlinked, where if you look at how things are going to happen, like it's ultimately getting down to optimizing for a person of one. So you're going to figure out how to relate to this person, what's the right journey for them, what's the right creative content for them. And so I think we'll see as AI evolves and is incorporated more fully throughout these solutions, that a lot of these solutions are actually going to work together to deliver on that segment of one, which has been a holy grail for marketers for a really long time.
Yeah. I think you were absolutely right. AI-based creative generation has the maximum votes, it's 64%, followed by creative optimization, which is 18, then AI-based journey optimization and segment optimization is 9. But while we are at that, I think even from segmentation perspective, I see there will be a lot of change, or maybe there is a lot of lookalike and those kind of models which will take over eventually, because I feel that is where AI shines really bright, where you're able to identify people who you never thought will be.
Yep. And we do have a couple of minutes now before we need to close the webinar. So if there's any questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them.
And I think we had one more poll question which I actually missed. So probably you can show that as well.
Yeah.
I think while we are talking about data, there is a very interesting stat I read about synthetic data, and it is almost halfway there of real data that world has been generating. And I'm sure in next couple of years, like synthetic data, the amount of synthetic data will be more than the real data that has been generating.
Yeah, actually, prior to HCL, I was helping some friends start a synthetic data company. So I did a lot of work on that. And one of the things that was really interesting with that is that the 80-20 rule in data science really has been consistent for a long time. So I think during this talk, Sumitra was talking about how essentially 80% of the work is in kind of the hygiene up front. When I was working with data scientists then looking at what they would need in a synthetic data tool, at that point, pretty consistently, 80% of all data science work was around data manipulation and data movement to get to the right data set. So only 20% of the work that these, really PhDs in data science were doing was actually the data science work. Most of the things that are being done were around actually just moving the data to get to the point that you could build models on it. So and that was consistent for many years up to this. So this has been a pretty big thing. Also on the synthetic data side, one of the things that's really interesting with that is that as synthetic data grows, you have some seed for that, and then you're creating it. But increasingly, we're in a world where the data that's being used to train these large language models, it has been generated by other large language models. So we're getting to a situation where it's like making a copy of a copy of a copy, and stuff starts to degrade as you have that, because the actual underlying real human generated stuff is now become a small fraction of what the data that's out there.
Yeah. And I feel that if you have your data, and though however state that is in, it's now a gold mine, because it's a real data, and you never know that going forward it will be very useful that all this AI power is used onto the real data, and it will yield really good results instead of it doing it on synthetic data.
Yep. And I think as a marketer, like this, as marketers, this is really important for us, because we need to be thinking about what are the valuable sources of data that we have. So you have things like all of your first party data is of course extremely important, but then there are other tools that you can integrate in with, like loyalty tools that might be creating zero party data. That's valuable information. So how can you create novel data sets, because that's going to enable you to have a strategic differentiator versus your competitors.
Yeah. So I think we have the result and the data readiness. I think the data hygiene, like removing duplicates and missing values and those kind of things, has highest votes. So again, 63%. Overcoming data silos is second most important pain point, which is 38%. So I think we have a clear winner as data hygiene.
Yeah. We do have a question in the chat. So there's a question about, do we have plans to build a chatbot for Unica documentation? With Max AI, actually, we use something called RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Basically, it's a way for us to feed data into a model. So the conversational assistant in the Unica Plus user interface is trained with all of the Unica documentation, all of the Unica tech notes. So you can just communicate with natural language with it in order to ask questions about how to do things for all of the components that are in Unica. And right now that has the components that are in Unica Plus, we're doing a lot of work to extend the scope of Unica Plus in the next release. So that will have campaign and interact in it. So the documentation, the things that Max AI will be able to contribute to or connect to will encompass all of kind of the Unica stuff as well as the Unica Plus stuff. And so a lot of what we're doing with conversational assistants stems not just from that documentation piece. I think that's a great first step, but we're looking at how you can use that to not just use it to query documentation, but to query all of your reporting data, also to query and things that are going on in the system, to be able to look at specific objects and how they're performing, or to create those objects. And so we see conversational assistants or chatbots as becoming one of the primary interfaces for people to work with software. And we see it definitely in Unica, particularly when we went through the beta cycle. That was how people wanted to integrate with stuff. But I think then going forward, outside of Unica, just looking at the market in general, conversational assistants are becoming the primary mechanism for a lot of software applications for you to be able to connect to it. That's also that growth is very interesting in terms of the way that we see just people using conversational assistants as the primary interface mechanism. One of the other things that's interesting with that is there are now, like, Google had just acquired somebody in the last couple of weeks from an agentic UI perspective that enables you to start putting charts and graphs and drop downs and things in the conversational assistant, because it can be difficult to type out, oh, I want this thing to run from this particular date or to this particular date, and typing out all the days and dates and things like that. But it gives you like the ability to add a date picker to a conversational assistant. So I think you're actually going to see a lot of advancements in what you can do through conversational interfaces or chatbots because of some of the technology changes that have happened over the past kind of 3 to 4 weeks. So this is all very new, but it's an evolving space that's happening very quickly.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So, any last thoughts before we close?
No, I think that's it. If you have any questions about this, we'd love to spend time talking with you about data. Data is like the heart of marketing for a lot of organizations. This is the thing that helps you really understand what's going on. So we we believe in the power of data to do really big, cool things for your company. We're happy to talk with you about it. And please register and look at the upcoming sessions. The stuff that Paul and Dennis and others are going to talk about is really interesting. So definitely join in on those, and you'll see that. I think you should be able to get access to Sumitra if you have any questions, and we're happy to talk and set up time and discuss things with you. All right. Thank you all for coming today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.